Hi, Ali again, creator of the Ollie Model, wrote a few books, might have mentioned that. I want to talk to you about your internal bodyguard. Oh yes. In order to do that, we need to backtrack a little bit, talk to you about the brain. Two parts of the brain you need to worry about, front part, back part, subconscious, or as I prefer to call it in Ollie world, library. Everything you've ever learned is in the back part. Why is that useful? Well, it means you don't have to learn it again. So for example, when you get in the car, you don't have to relearn how to drive, you just do it subconsciously. You make it a cup of coffee or tea in the morning, you don't have to relearn how to do it or remember if you like it, you just do it subconsciously. 80% of the time, we're not in control at all, and arguably, we're really dangerous on that few percent when we are. Anyway, here's the thing, the majority of clients I see come with stress, anxiety, panic attacks, which if not dealt with can be so exhausting and so debilitating, that's a big word for me, can lead to depression. It's not a nice thing, it shouldn't be taken lightly. And you can't just get over yourself or snap out of it. So they turn up with self-diagnosis, or maybe the GP's diagnosed them with stress, anxiety, panic attacks. You see, I don't call what they're feeling stress, anxiety, or panic attacks. I call it James Bond. Go with me. Everybody knows about your five senses, yeah? Smell, taste, touch. But we all have a sixth sense. Now that sixth sense is really, really strong in children. It's strong in some adults, but a lot of us just start to ignore it, mainly because of the way our world's gone, I guess. We're not so dependent on it to keep us safe. But the whole idea of the sixth sense, if you think about an animal in the wild, okay, and mummy deer's over there, munchy, 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 baby deer's over here, munchy, 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 and mum suddenly goes, the child will sense it and be alert too. It's a sixth sense, it's a bodyguard, it's a protection, it's making you aware of something around you that's not quite right and you might not be safe. You might have experienced it when you've walked into a room and you don't know what it is, you just can't put your finger on it, but there's something about that room just doesn't feel right, you know? Or maybe when you're meeting someone new and everyone's going, oh, they're lovely, you'll love them, and you're like, I don't know, there's something, and you can't put your finger on it. That's your sixth sense, or James Bond. You see, in your library, in your brain, of everything you've ever learned is all the things you love, all the things you're not so keen on, and all the things that are dangerous or have hurt you. And not just physical things, emotional things too. Now, James Bond, or as you lot until now have been calling him, stress, anxiety, panic attacks, his job is to know what's in all those boxes, especially the boxes of things that have hurt you physically or emotionally. And his job's to keep you away from them. And the way that he does that is by activating that sixth sense. So if you think about it, James is kind of circling around you all the time, that sixth sense. And if you're anywhere near anything that even links a little bit to what's in one of those boxes of things that hurt you or frightened you, because James is a bit of a job's worth and some of the links are quite tenuous, which makes finding them interesting, he will start to make you anxious. Now, James can't leap out and deal with whatever that threat might be, because he's only a little guy, obviously, because he's in your head, yeah? So he can't leap out, he's not really much of a bodyguard because he's a little guy, yeah. So what can he do? Have you heard of the fight or flight response? You know, that thing where we become superhuman and we away our problems, or we run away, adrenaline, all that stuff. James is the one that pushes that button in you to make all that happen. And he does it because he is only a little guy and he can't leap out and protect you. So what he does is by pushing that button, he makes you superhuman so you can run away or fight. That's what James does, he's your bodyguard. But when fight or flight kicks in, what you start to feel is stress, anxiety and panic attacks. See the connection now? It's just James. James has pushed the button because he thinks something near you is of danger. Sometimes he's right. You know, when you're walking down a dark alleyway, you just sense there's something behind you. Thank you, James. But the problem is, a lot of the times, he links things so tenuously because he's such a job's worth that he can make life very, very difficult for you and everything makes you nervous and jumpy. Let's give you an example. James is responsible for most of your fears and phobias. And the interesting thing is that most of your fears and phobias you didn't learn yesterday or the day before. Cliche as it is, you learnt them when you were really, really, really young. Lovely story, this is true. Lady came to see me in her 30s, absolutely terrified of cows. You know, the type. To the point where just driving through the country, she might see one, so she doesn't. It's really full on for her, and it's really sort of messing her life up a bit, especially as new boyfriend lives in the country. So we did a little bit of work, and we talked about James and the anxiety that she feels when she's anywhere near somewhere where a cow might be. Is actually James being a bit oversensitive. Field means cow. Push button, anxiety. With me so far? So what we have to do is work out where James learnt that cows are bad news. So there's some lovely techniques that we can use to actually trot back through your past and find out the first initial event of you being afraid of a cow. And so many times by doing that you can let these things go, because until you let them go, James is just going to react. Because James, very good at protecting you, but there's a few things he doesn't know, and I'll come to that. So with this lovely lady, we did a little bit of going backwards into her past to try and find out where this first event was. And you know, don't worry if you think, oh, I couldn't bloody remember that. That's what good therapists do. They help you remember it. It's locked in here, and we're good at getting it out. And we went back to a time, a memory she had that she'd completely forgotten about, of when she was about 3 or 4, and she was out with mum and dad, and they'd gone to Uncle's farm. And they were actually baby calves. That's why they'd gone to see the baby calves. But because she was so little, these baby calves were quite big. And the mummy ones, they were the, you know, the cows with the lovely long sort of red hair and the big horns. That's gorgeous. I don't know what they're called. They were that breed. And mummy cow came over. Now, my lady was very, very small, but she was only 4 or 5. This cow was huge, and as it came over just to sniff her, she got really scared, fell over backwards and really hurt her arm. In that instance, all the emotions that were kicking off, something in her brain connected that cow to being the reason that she felt pain in her arm and fear. It wasn't actually the cow, it was falling over, and by going back with her through time, we were able to spot that. But by doing that and letting her see, well, actually, you know, the cow was just being friendly. It looked big because I was so little. And actually, it wasn't the cow that hurt me. It was me falling over. She was able to let go of that cow phobia. Brilliant. But that's only half the job. Because you see, James Bond, her bodyguard, stress, anxiety, will still make her afraid of cows unless he realises what the connection was too. See, James doesn't know that she's now 30. James has no idea how old any of us are. Your James has no idea. So he still thinks you're little and he needs to protect you. So what we needed to do with this lovely lady was we set her free. She'd gone from 10 terrified of cows down to 3 or 4 just from doing that lovely exercise anyway. But it was still there at 3 or 4, and that was still James going, oh yeah, but cows, we're scared of cows. Push button, anxiety, whoa. And what she had to do, and she really did do this and it'll help, and guys do it too, all right? Every time she was anywhere and she felt that old anxiety coming on, because James was like, oh, there might be a cow, quick, push button, panic, whoa. She literally just, because she decided James lived in her heart, because that's where he'd be to protect her. I think my James lives in my head, but it doesn't matter. She just went, it's all right, James, I've got this, I'm 30 and it's fine. No anxiety attack. Built-in bodyguards. You just need a therapist to help you understand why you've got that fear and phobia. And it's probably not what you think. And James, he's just trying to help you. So stress and anxiety, don't be freaked out by it. He's actually trying to protect you.